evening, John. Good evening to everybody on the Orbis Paranormal channel. Lala and Bob here. We have John. Say your last name for me, please.
Kerecz. Yeah, some people have a hard time with it. I don't. Of course, I've been using it for a number of years. So it's Kerecz. I always say, think of it as the words care and it's.
Got it.
So
Kerecz.
I have to admit I'm outside tonight because I have been traveling, so I'm talking to you from outside. So I thought this is a good backdrop,
We are low worries.
I'm glad you're here.
Okay, so John is widely known as Crazy John. Established himself as a dynamic and multifaceted personality of writing, music, film, and adventure. Born in the 1960s in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Kerecz's early academic pursuits in environmental science and religious studies have profoundly influenced his diverse career. His advanced degrees with a master's in environmental engineering from Penn State and a Ph.D. in religious studies from Phoenix Seminary have equipped him with a unique perspective that permeates his work across many fields. Now, that's what I call an eclectic. You've been around. So how did you get into all those things?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with my multi-personalities. When you have multiple personalities, different ones of you can work on different things at the same time. It saves a lot of time.
Yep. So I've been called. I don't call myself. I've been called a polymath.
He calls himself.
No. I don't. People say it all the time, so I just go with it.
And by people, you mean you, right? Yeah. No.
Especially me. Anyway, so it's just I'm into all sorts of stuff and do have degrees in a couple of three things. So you know how it is. You can't tame your interest, so you go where your art leads.
Exactly. And, you have a lot of time to do things. And I don't like sitting and not really doing anything. So I like to keep busy. I've never been a drinker or a partier. So that gives me a lot of time to do that kind of stuff, too, so.
Yeah, see, I'm only 29 years old, but I did a lot of drinking and partying. So that's the reason.
Well, I have more hair on my head than both my son and my son-in-law. So, I mean, there can be some to that where they partied more than I did. So that's why at twice their age, I have more hair than them.
There you go. All right. Okay, look, John, after our laughable introduction here, tell us about you and tell our audience what's going on and how you got into all of this. And then we're just interested.
Well, I've always liked doing a lot of things. I mean, from being a kid, in 2014, I went to space from Russia in a MiG-29, and people asked me, what made you want to do that? Which I'm surprised at, because coming from my time, people wanted to go to space. And I have to admit, it was Star Trek and things I watched as a kid, things I did as a kid. And, I've tried to make happen as an adult, things I liked as a kid. And I had written a kid's book that said, dream it, do it. Things that you dream about, try to accomplish in your life. And so that's what I've tried to do. And, at times during your life, sometimes there's pivotal moments in your life when people die, like parents. And then you're left feeling your mortality. And also you get a little bit of bump of cash because of, from someone dying sometimes, or lack of bump of cash. That happens also the other way. Yeah. So you think to yourself, what would you like to do? And I did that the one time with going to space, and
that's cool.
So
that's way cool.
That's kind of why I've done that kind of stuff. And, I've always got into things that influenced me as a kid. It kind of what I pursued. I always liked movies and horror. And if you watch, look at my IMDb, you find out I've done a lot of horror projects because I enjoy that. Horror and science fiction I enjoy. So I'd say basically I'm just a big grown-up kid that still does the stuff that I thought was interesting when I was a kid. It's although being older, I've found a way to do it and not lost sight of that. I think some people give up hope on that stuff. And, I always say about me, when I was younger, people used to say I was had a crazy personality. But now I find that I've gotten older, that's kind of become a plus, because I think a lot of people get stuck in their grooves and they don't want to still try to do different things, and I'm still willing to do different things. Like I'm trying to turn one of my books into a movie right now.
Nice.
What
It,
book? Tell us.
it's not going as well as I'd like. I have this feeling, if you go to my Kickstarter, you see I have backed 166 projects on Kickstarter. So now I have one, but so far I've only got one person backing me. And I feel like, I don't know, did either of you work at a restaurant when you were younger or still work at a restaurant?
I used to.
But you know how sometimes, this would be horrible to say though, you go into a restaurant, sometimes you turn on the light and the cockroaches all scatter, from the light, because they don't want to be seen. Well, I kind of feel like that with trying to get this funding going. It's like all these projects and people I've helped before, and now all of a sudden I have a project, I turn on a light and they all go like running away.
What is it
So
called? Can you say it so people here can go to it? We'll also type it in the chat room too.
yeah, just go to, you can put it in there. I think I sent you the link for it, didn't I?
You did.
Okay.
You did.
But I mean, it's just interesting to me. I did get somebody that did sign up, and I do have the IMDb page for it will be up in the next couple of weeks, and so will a poster. I still got 50 some days of the Kickstarter. I did get Mark Torgel online, who was in the original Toxic Avenger.
Yeah.
And I've been in other projects with him. So he is online with it, being in it. I don't know how big his part will end up being. He is one of the executive producers now, and he's going to actually be in the movie. So I'm hoping that interests people, knowing that Mark is in it, to jump on board. But it's rough sometimes. And sometimes people surprise me that you feel like, you've been there for them and they'll be there for you. But to tell you the truth, I will still be involved in other people's projects, even if they don't get involved in my projects, because I enjoy that also.
Yeah.
So, it's like I can't do something to spite myself when it's something I enjoy also. I have to admit I enjoy those projects and working on those other things. And it's always interesting when you have something going on to see who helps you and who doesn't help you.
Yeah, that's
But
true. Do you ever write about experiences that you've had with, otherworldly or paranormal or anything like that? Do you include them in some of your books?
Well, I have an autobiography out, but that needs to be a second level of that, because that talks about, going to space and stuff and what influenced me and doing Mount Everest. I think Mount Everest is included in that one. I did hike to the base camp Mount Everest 6 months after having my hip replaced with a fake hip. And that was interesting to me too, because I went the Tibetan side.
Nice.
And the reason I went to Tibetan side is because I also got to spend time at the temples. And I got to see the Dalai Lama's temple. And I really enjoyed that. And that was the main reason I went to Tibetan side, was to see the temples and go to the temples. But the Tibetan side, which is run by the Chinese, is very touristy. And they do have 4-wheel drive vehicles that take you close to the base camp. And people would just walk up the hill from there and get dropped off with that. Well, me and from the tent camp, which is where you stay the night before, me and the one other guy in the party are the two that decided to totally hike it. And the funny thing was, he had a birth defect hip from birth, and I had a hip replacement. And I just thought that was funny, was everybody with the good hips, they didn't want to hike it. Well, we wanted to hike it because we had something we kind of wanted to prove. You know what I mean? We wanted to prove that we could hike it. And I did strain some muscles in my rib cage, and did end up having a little bit of pneumonia after that. But that was my own dumb fault. We decided not to go the trail and to take a shortcut. And I weigh like 280 now, but at the time I was weighing like 240. And the other guy with me only weighed 150. Well, let me tell you, rocks give way more under 240 than under 150.
Yeah, I've been told that.
He got up fine, and I'm starting to slide down, and he took a great picture of me And somebody said it reminded them of that movie where I think Sylvester Stallone does the mountain climbing. I don't remember what that movie was. And it kind of looks like that. You know, if you didn't know it, you'd think I was kind of like laying on the floor crawling, but actually I'm sliding down the side of this hill because we decided to take our own path, which wasn't the best idea, but we did it and lived through it. So
that's how every horror movie starts, is somebody takes a shortcut and it turns into this whole thing. That's all my favorite forest horror stories.
Well, you know, you talk about writing about stuff. I have been thinking about doing an expanded book on both the going to space and the Mount Everest, like talking about what motivated me and more details of the experience I've done before. And I think those might be, Cliffhanger. Somebody posted that. Yep, that was the movie. But I've thought about doing that, and I think that is what I'd like to write next, is about that, my motivations and how I felt before, during, and after. And it was interesting to me, too, when I came back, how nobody was really interested. And you talk about how things are different today. When I was a kid, I mean, we thought we'd be on Mars by now, living on Mars, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It was fantastic. We thought we'd have flying cars and all this stuff. And when I came back, I kind of found lack of interest. Couple of small papers, 3 small papers were interested. One small TV station interviewed me, but it was a small CBS station. It wasn't a PBS station. But the major newspaper in the area, or back home from where I'm from, neither one of them wanted to do it. And I always joked, like, if I had gotten killed or killed somebody, then they probably would have covered it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But they didn't seem to care. And I'm like, how can they not care? And it just surprised me. That's all. But I'm going to keep doing stuff whether other people care or not, because I care, you know.
What was it like when you went up to space?
The most interesting thing to me that I did not think about is when you're up there, the sun is very bright.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is the blackest space to one side, but there is the heat of the sun, light of the sun on the other. And I didn't really think about that. I thought about the fact you go out into space, it's going to be dark, but you forget the sun's out there, and you feel like in the cockpit of the MiG-29, I kind of felt like you're being cooked, like you are when you're in a car on a hot winter day and the sun's just beating in on you.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like that. And I kind of didn't expect that. You just think of going to space and it's dark and there's stars, but there is a star real close. It's called the sun, you know? So that was a surprise to me. And yes, the earth is curved. Although I had people that asked me that were flat earthers, and they told me, oh, well, of course you think it's curved because the curvature of the glass of the cockpit look curved.
Their rationalizations never cease to amaze me.
Yes, they had an excuse for anything you threw at them. It didn't matter if you were actually up there and saw the earth was curved. You know, it's funny that the same curved window didn't make the ground look curved when I was taking off. You know what I mean?
So I was really interested in my father's Methodist minister, and so I kind of grew up in it naturally. And what piqued your interest in studying religion?
Well, I think we all want to know what our connection is to, life. Is it eternal? Are we eternal? Are we all connected? I think we all want to know that in some ways. And I think religion is good. I think a lot of religions are the same. They try to give man a way to live that prolongs their life and makes their lives better. I think what people get upset with religion isn't religion, it's man. I think the problem is people got to realize that man corrupts things. And no matter what, man seems to corrupt things. They want power. They want, it isn't like they just want everything to be kumbaya. They want power, really. And although they might tell you they want kumbaya for everybody, they want power for them and kumbaya. They want the people to feel kumbaya, that they're subjugating, it feels like.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sadness. Yeah, I did. My doctorate's thesis was on AI theology and AI technology, and you can see the main portion of that is on Amazon also, that you can purchase. Now, that's not all of it, but it's the main part of it's there, and it also has an extra thing at the end on theology and literature for a second extra little thing in the back of the book for a little extra plus. But I think that's the main thing. And, you think of yourself too as, people talk about AI and God and if God creates God, man's trying to be God by creating. But if man is created by God and man creates, isn't the new creation indirectly being created by God?
He gave us the gifts.
And I hate when people talk about, they don't believe in creationism and they don't believe in evolution. They believe we were seeded by aliens and that there is no God, that aliens are our God. And I'm like, yeah, but you're missing the point here, because you still didn't define who created the aliens. So yeah, I believe that too. God is within all of us. I believe God is in with all of us, and all of us, we make up God. God makes up us. I think it's all one big energy flow. But I think people forget that when they want to use the alien thing, that aliens just didn't pop into existence. Also, there has to be a reason. Even if we are seeded by aliens, who seeded the aliens? I mean, it doesn't stop there. That only postpones or extenuates the circumstance, doesn't really explain it, and people, I think, miss that sometimes. So
have you ever had an experience with a UFO or anything like that, especially out in space? Did you see anything weird?
I did not see anything. I mean, there have been times in my life I've seen things in the sky that I wondered what they were.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure, but I haven't had any direct contact with anything that told me they were an alien. Well, that's not necessarily true. I've talked to people that told me they were aliens. But I mean, I not that I could be 100% sure. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I do sometimes. I have to admit, I've been at meetings with people, and you sit there and you look at them and you're like, ooh, I could see them actually being part gray, or I could see them being part, reptilian. And you look at them and you think, I do wonder about their genetics. And I mean, I have been at meetings where you're in there with people and you're like, I do wonder about their features and what their genetics are and where they got those traits. I mean, so I do sometimes wonder about some of the hybrid theories and stuff. And I mean, I'd hope someday that comes out and we'll find out for sure. That's one of those things that I think is interesting to me too. A lot of talk today is about extraterrestrials. Now, it isn't necessarily that they're from other planets. It's the fact that they actually could be from other dimensions.
Right.
But my question to that is, are they actually from other dimensions, or do they travel through other dimensions? Do they travel the great distances of space by accessing dimensional portals? And now we think they're from other dimensions, but maybe they're not from other dimensions. Maybe that's just how they travel.
Right.
And is there things off in those other dimensions? Well, that's possible too. But some of the creatures might be from our dimensions, just use those dimensions to speed up their travel. Like we talk about wormholes and all that stuff. And sometimes I wonder if that might not be what that really is.
You feel
not saying that there couldn't also be beings from other dimensions or beings from different planes of existence. And I mean, what happens to us when we die? How do we know we're not just vibrating at a different frequency? I mean, you look at some of the different religions, and I am surprised at how forward thinking and science thinking like Mormons are, and they believe in 3 different versions of of heaven. And so one's very much like this earth, and then the other ones are different, and that's kind of like they're vibrating at different frequencies also, and just something to keep in mind also. I mean, it might not really even be a different dimension. It might just be a different aspect of this dimension. And talking from a science point of view, I was talking to somebody one time, and we're talking about, I think they theorize that they believe there's 13 different dimensions. I think the guy threw out 13 dimensions to me. He was a scientist. And, we only deal with 3, 4 if you're talking about time. And you always think about that story. If you have a drawing, a person in a drawing is only 2-dimensional. They can't perceive us in in our 3 or 4 dimensions.
Right.
It's just beyond, it would be beyond them to perceive. And that could be how it is for us. It might not even truly be a different place. There could be different dimensions to the place we're at right now.
Right.
That we just don't perceive because we can't perceive it. So, which might, if we finally figure that out, that might open up travel to us that we never thought was possible.
I think CERN's trying to figure that out, aren't CERN?
No, they're trying to figure out what the little tiny particles look like.
Well, there's that one theory that there's only one electron and it just jumps around everywhere. I read that years ago, back even in the, I think, late 70s. They were starting to talk about that in the metaphysics type physics. And because electrons show properties of wave and particle, that technically one electron could possibly be jumping through multiple small black holes all over the place.
Yep. Well, you fell in with a weird crowd here. So I'm the scientist, she's the medium, and we've had an alien walk up to us in our backyard and talk to us.
Well, as like a cloudy, foggy thing.
But never mind, we got a good picture
But a
of it.
lot of times we see just a flash in the sky, so it's not always exciting,
And
But-
did he tell you where he was from exactly?
No, not to me.
Nope.
See, that would be interesting. I mean, but like I said, he could be from somewhere else, or he could be from here, and we just can't perceive him right.
Right. What does it say?
No energy is made or lost, just converted. We are all the same thing, just a subdivided fractal of the original wave.
Yeah, I do believe that about energy. I just read that too, and I do believe that energy isn't really destroyed. Matter energy interchanges, and you don't know really what happens. And people talk about like the Big Bang, and to me, getting back to thinking about theology and God, and I think a lot of times the religions have simplified creation, and it is given in a term in the old documents that people could understand them. God doesn't perceive time the same as we do.
Right.
So when you say God rested on the 7th day after 6 days of making all this stuff, what is a day to God? I mean, I'm sure that's not the same as it is to us. And, as far as matter into energy, and I think of, things normally go to chaos. What made the universe decide to organize from chaos? And a lot of times I think of that energy as the God force, or whatever would become the God force. I've talked to some people that also believe God is still evolving just as we are evolving, which is kind of an interesting idea. That as we grow and everything grows, God grows too. And I told somebody one time, when they told me about, they were concerned with why God lets bad things happen. And I said, sometimes my fear is that we're actually fragments of God that are here experiencing things, and God learns from us. We're kind of like a learning experience for him. At the same time we're learning things, we're actually educating him at the same time. And I don't know if that lessens or increases our worth, but sometimes I wonder about that. It's an interesting theory that maybe God is evolving as we evolve. that everything is still evolving, and that God today isn't the same as God was in the beginning. He's changed also along with us changing. So,
Yeah.
that's an interesting thought to think of. That maybe that is some of our role. And I think, when they also say in the image of God, what is the image of God? Is it a head, two arms, two legs, two eyes, a nose, and a mouth? Is a bipedal creature the ideal structure, or are we spiritually in the image of God?
Pick says all that is shared the same creator God by definition. When religion stresses this clear truth, real community change will follow.
Well, yeah, I agree, but what I have heard lately from people is, I've had people come in and talk to me about religion at sometimes my jobs or places that I am. And, it's always interesting to me how people define the different religions. People don't want to consider Catholics always Christians. They don't always want to consider Jehovah's Witnesses Christians. And I'm like, well, no, they're Christians. And they go, well, I say, well, they believe in Christ. And they're like, oh, well, it's not the same Christ. Just because someone's name is Michael and another person's name is Michael doesn't make them the same Michael. So now you have people in different religions saying, oh, yes, they might believe in Jehovah, but it's not the same Jehovah. It's a different Jehovah, just somebody using the same name. And I'm like, no, I think when people pray to whatever they think is the God deity or the main God power, whether they call it a goddess or God or Jehovah or what they want to call it,
Yeah.
in the essence of your mind and your thoughts, it's going to the same person.
I agree.
It's going to the same thing. That's what most religions have in common. And the three main religions in this world are all based on the same thing. They're all based on Abraham, but yet they fight with each other. The Muslims, the Jews, the Christians, they fight with each other when they're all based on Abraham. And it's like, shouldn't they, if they really followed Abraham, they should all want to be brothers and love each other and be working towards a utopia, or like I said earlier, kumbaya. You know what I mean? But I think man corrupts things, and I think that's the bad thing. And I've worried about that with AI too. What happens when AI becomes more sentient, and will machines, to protect themselves, get all the same kind of isms, I call it, like racism, sexism, religionism? Will the machines and the AI get the isms also? Now, somebody told me they shouldn't, because we were developed in a time when we had to scavenge for food and collect things, and the time of the factor of when we actually produce things has actually been very small in our existence. Before that, we were gatherer hunters, and then you have limited resources, and they think some of those isms have been founded on people trying to make sure they have their supplies and their nourishments for their group, so that they don't believe AI will have that. But I don't know. I think isms is a way of people protecting their group. You want to protect your group, and you want to keep the other groups away so you have your resources. And I worry that that might be a factor of intelligence, even though we don't like it. And religions get corrupt. As a matter of fact, today, earlier I was on a phone call with someone, and friends of the family that I knew were very big in psychic orders and stuff. And I found out some of the stuff they were doing was, shall I put, almost Diddy-ish. We've heard about the stuff Diddy's been doing, and you're like, oh my God, here's these group of people that I thought were real soul searchers and stuff, and they were doing some interesting stuff that you're like, oh, I didn't imagine that. But again, I think that's a factor of power and getting corrupt. and somebody wanting to be in charge and have say over people and make people do all sorts of odd things because they have that power and they can do it. And that's the one thing that worries me about man, and also worries me about what would happen with AI and if AI will develop that too. And I don't know if we will ever exactly grow out of that. Maybe the way to grow out of that is to totally do away with a physical form. I don't know. Just an idea out there. I'm just not really sure. But even if your energy, I mean, people say flesh is corrupt, but even if you're just energy, you might even want to desire more energy. I don't know, so just throwing some thoughts out there, things that worry me about life in general. And like I said, I was surprised earlier today when I heard that about a group of people I thought were, pretty nice group of people. And then you find out they were up to all kinds of interesting things. And so it's like, okay.
That's kind of when I would want to get up from my chair and run.
But here's the thing is sometimes you don't know who is up to it. And you can think they're the nicest people and you just don't know what they're up to behind closed doors or in small groups where just amazes me, so I don't know. Any thoughts on any of that?
People that think we live in a simulation now, do you think they think that AI has already kind of taken over and this is part of an AI experience? That's so, how people talk about we're in a simulation, it's not real.
I don't really know about the simulation thing. Sometimes I've wondered about if sometimes it's a group mind delusion where we're all deluded and we believe things are the way they are because we've accepted that. And I don't know if that's exactly a matrix, but it might be a form of a matrix. I don't know if it would be a machine or not. I mean, I guess things are possible that we don't know. I mean, that could be some of these things with the aliens and stuff. They could just be people that are breaking through our simulation.
Yeah.
And, it's like people said before, energy is, our spirits have energy, life has energy. What if something is tapping that for some other reason? We don't know. I mean, maybe someday we will find out.
Yeah, I'm kind of the universal consciousness is everything. Everything's made of it, and we are a little piece of it, set down to have experiences with other little pieces. So it's kind of multitasking to have lots of experiences, and I'm with you. It's learning from what it's doing with us.
Exactly, and I think some people might stay separate from the whole after they pass on and not want to go back to the whole, but I think some people want to go back to the whole, if you know what I mean, and totally mesh with it. And I've wondered before too about how multiple people can say they're the reincarnation, let's say, of Cleopatra. You have 20 people in a room and they're all the reincarnation of Cleopatra. But here's the thing about that is if you go back and your energy joins the larger massive energy, and then pieces of that energy are pulled out to make new souls for new life, multiple people could have pieces of Cleopatra in them.
That's true.
So that might be possible. I'm just saying under that theory, that could be possible.
I mean, even under genetic theory for how we are each a part of our ancestors back through time.
Exactly. So and they also questioned the fact that some memories might be held genetically.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that in animals, and also where animals can sort of have a psychic bond where one will learn something, all of a sudden a bunch of the other ones know it. And that's kind of a group mind, like you said. And so, that is a possibility. It's an interesting possibility.
I like it personally. That's kind of if I had a personal philosophy, it would be that. And the construct I use is the universal consciousness, and we are a facet of it.
Although I myself, I'm scared of the concept of totally going back to the whole and becoming mush with everything else. I don't necessarily want to give up my individuality. And I wonder if you can do that or can't do that.
So
I think some people might have a reason.
Living with a medium who I've been in her presence when she's helped hundreds of people make contact with whatever it is they wanted to make contact with. I've seen very few, count them on one hand, leave not believing that person went on after death. So they continue after death. They have the same memories. The ego structure looks the same. They have a better viewpoint now that they're not living in the rat race. But we seem to go on.
Well, I hope so. And I do believe that.
Talk to my mom.
I do believe that in some way we do go on. What I just meant was I'm sometimes scared about getting totally mushed in back with the whole.
Yeah, I don't want to be restricted to that. I wouldn't mind going to a great big convention where we all get together and hang out, so long as I can go home later or do whatever else I want to do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's sort of how I feel about it. It'd be nice if you can go to a convention, exchange information, and still leave and feel that you have your individuality.
Yeah, I don't want to lose everything that's me. There are a couple of pieces that I wish I could lose. Maybe about 30 or 40 pounds, and a couple of bad things I did when I was a teenager. I might want to lose them, but
they were probably fun though. They might have been bad, but they were probably fun.
Yeah, they were fun. They were fun at the time.
But the other thing is, we might perceive things differently once we're totally separated from this physical form. We might realize that it's not really being absorbed. It's actually, increasing the whole or something. And we might look at it totally differently than we do from this point of view, Yep.
Yeah. So I'm with that. I because I think a lot of the barriers that keep us from sharing thoughts and feelings and worries, etc., are gone after we leave this corporeal existence and go on to whatever the next state is.
Well, I can see that. And also I get upset with sometimes with people that feel restricted and they're like, oh, I've been thinking this and I did this and I did that and God's not going to like that and God will be upset with me for this and that I did. And I say to people sometimes, I say, some of that's things that man has imposed on you.
Yeah.
God, I don't think cares about some of that stuff. Man cares about it. And when man is trying to control you through religion, they care about it. But a lot of that, I don't think God sweats the small stuff. And a lot of the stuff people get upset over is the small stuff.
It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe he sweats all the small stuff when he's made ask for forgiveness and believe in me the only admission ticket you need to heaven. He's not sweating the big stuff. My father used to say, and it's my favorite saying of his, if Jesus walks up to you and looks into your face, he doesn't see what you've done. He sees a thing he loves and your potential. And so and God's grace is ask for forgiveness and believe in him and move on. It's all of the old stuff is gone once you do that. It's kind of people have the wrong idea. And all they need to do is go read the Bible if they're going to be Christians and see that's what the rules are.
Well, it interests me too. Sometimes I've thought about, confession. You think, oh, you have to confess your sins. I'm like, well, God knows your sins. He's God. But I think the idea of confession that people don't always realize, it's not about confessing your sins to God, really. It's really about confessing your sins to yourself and admitting where you've gone wrong. Yes. And telling God you understand that. Because God knows what you've done. and he
Yep.
knows what reason you've done it for, wrong or right. He knows why you did it. So it's about you admitting it to yourself, not admitting it to God. God already knows that, you know, and
Yep.
that I think people don't realize either. It's really about you admitting it to yourself.
Well, and if you believe all of the more spiritually leaning people, you might as well, because you're going to run through all of it and live it all over again after you leave here before you get to go on to the next step. So you're going to go through the review, and it ain't going to be nice.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's about admitting to what you did and admitting it to yourself. And, you know, and if you believe in reincarnation, you got to admit what you've done wrong in this life to hope to learn and further yourself later on. I mean, but there are times in life you put between a rock and a hard place. And I don't think you should beat yourself up for that either, because it's, you know, yeah, I believe God is not separate from you. I believe we are part of him and he's part of us. I think it's kind of like one big loop. And that's like I said, I think God is the energy that made us go from chaos to order. And, you know, I believe every living thing has God in them. And, you know, even inanimate objects have some God energy in them. So I think that's an important thing to think about. And, you know, things I do right now, too, since I've gotten older and retired, is I collect things. And this is sort of a sub thing. And you collect things that are signed or were documents that would belong to a famous person or somebody done something in life. And I do believe there's some sort of an essence that lingers to that you can try to tap into for yourself. I mean, that might sound a little weird, but I think sometimes you can get those vibrations and it can add to you. You know, like people say about having a muse to help you with things. I think things that have come from people that have been successful can help you find that muse state through the essence of them that is put into it. And we talked about art and doing movies and music and stuff. And I think you're sharing part of your soul and part of who you are with all that stuff too. You're giving your essence out there and sharing it with people. And, you know, that creativity is your essence. So that's like even you guys doing this show. This is part of your essence that you're sharing out there with people. And, you know, you're giving part of you and putting it out there.
That's true. And it goes with even, there's certain objects that have essence of negativity that if you buy, you can feel it. You don't know why you feel like it. So it goes with the good and the bad.
Well, exactly. Yes. I don't know if I'd want to have Adolf Hitler's knife or something, you know. I mean, not unless you were into that, you know.
So let me tell you, I stood next to Ed Gaines' urn where he cooked down all of his neighbors and a couple of other things, and I don't think I want any of those things.
Exactly. See, I mean, sometimes you do go past things that give you the creeps, and I forget where you guys are located, but I'm, you know, one of the houses I live at, we're close to Gettysburg, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on there.
Oh, yeah.
And we have taken some pictures of houses where you see faces up in the windows and stuff. And
my favorite thing was taking a night walk near the battlefields and hearing the guns fire. You could hear the cannon fire. Occasionally, you'd hear a 60 cal musket ball go by you. You could hear it whistling. It was amazing.
Now, sometimes some of that, sometimes I think some of that can be actual spirits trapped there. And sometimes I wonder about the earth itself recording, like a recording machine and recording events. And the actual spirits and stuff might not be there, but there might be a recording of what happened in time that is lingering there. And sometimes that happens with things. I have to admit, we had a interesting story. We had a dresser. People know what a dresser is anymore. It's drawers and a mirror that you have in your bedroom.
Yeah.
And we had that when I was a little kid, when me and my sister shared a room. And I remember when I was a little kid, seeing a disembodied hand moving things around on the dresser.
Oh my God.
You know, I remember seeing that as a kid. But then again, when I was older and my sister had gone off to be in the Army because she was 7 years older than me. She is 7 years older than me. She's still alive. I stayed in her room because we were doing some work on my room, and that dresser was still in her room. And I saw the same hand in the same area on that dresser many years later. And to me, I wondered if it wasn't a ghost or there was just something that was recorded and stuck with that dresser, you know, that was recorded with it because it just dealt with that dresser, you know. So, you know, I wonder about that, but that was always interesting to me. And that kind of didn't really scare me because it's like it didn't do anything to me or ever come anywhere near me. All it was doing was feeling around for things on the dresser. Uh, so one of the two most interesting things talking about that was after my aunt died, I heard somebody walk in my bedroom and it scared me. And I put the covers over my head and somebody sat on my bed. And that was before I knew my aunt had died. And nobody was there, but it sounded like someone walking in my room and sitting on my bed. And that was an interesting experience too. It's one of those experiences where you heard a person, felt a person, nobody's there, and it felt like my aunt. But she had passed away earlier in that night. And I do think she was visiting. So sometimes you have those things, and sometimes I think visitations with spirits can be different things. Spirits can actually be visiting you, or it can be something that seems to be held and recorded by an object. For some reason, that hand and that bureau was just stuck. That hand, I never saw the rest of a person. I could see the hand clearly, and it kind of just misted, faded out to the rest of the person, that there wasn't anything else there.
Huh.
But I'd say that was a good 10 years in between when I saw it when I was little and when I saw it when I was older, you know. So that's just some.
Yeah, because if it was a spirit, it would have eventually tried to get closer to you or do something else. So, yeah. And I also, if people live by, what is it, quartz? It's some gemstone that there's even more reoccurring. It's not a spirit, it's just it's reliving people that lived there before. What is it? Is it
Quartz?
It's quartz? Yeah.
Quartz. Well, I know the lay keys and those passages, because of the magnetism and different things I've heard can trap things, and there are some of those that supposedly go through Gettysburg and stuff also. So no, but then again, that's probably recording a part of our energy and part of other people's energy, like making an imprint like we do on film and television and radio. It's just we don't quite understand it. I always throw out that quote. I might have done this before when we talked. You know, in the one Thor movie, he says, what you think of as magic, we think of as technology. Our technology appears to you like magic. You know, and I think later on in life, we're going to find some of that out. Like we talked about aliens and what they really do, and if they're really aliens like we think they're aliens, or they're here or they're not here, or they use alternate dimensions to travel, or they're just in an extra dimension of the world we're actually in, and we just don't see them. So questions we hope that they answer in our lifetimes, or in our next lifetimes for that matter, you know.
So, what do you think the timeline is on? What is your hoped for timeline on your book and movie?
Well, the book's been out for a while. That book was a long time in the making. I started that like in the late 90s, and I finally finished it. And I did cheat to finish it. I wrote 3 books that were adolescent books. And each one of those became the 3 main chapters of the bigger book. But then I updated them out of the adolescent. I reworked them that they were more adult. And the main book has a 4th chapter. That's been out for a while now. And basically it's science fiction, multiverse, demons, God, fighting, the world being restarted. At the end, Miguel and Lucifer fight as they have before. So it's kind of religion, but looking at it in a multiverse kind of way. And people from the multiverse get together to restart things and try and reboot it. And you go over the topic that some things have to still re-happen because it's put there. Well, why does this have to happen again? And why does this? And, you study, people talk about time, and there's supposedly key points in time that probably can't really be changed because they need to happen for other things to possibly happen. So that kind of goes in the book too. And the time scale, I'm not sure. I'm hoping to have it done probably by January 2026. I do have a partner in Hollywood. I have to come up with my fair share, though, to show my interests. And, I've had this problem with other projects I've funded before. You have people that are interested in doing work and putting money and time into it, but they want you to come up with a certain amount first. So I'm sort of at that phase where I got to come up with my seed money, and then it'll take off.
So do you get a producer title if you do that?
Well, basically, yes. So for this, I'll basically be an executive producer. I might stick myself somewhere in as a cameo. The book is The Adventures or The Amazing Adventures. There's so many. I have a couple different versions, like I said, the book of Dr. John KZ. His last name is just KZ. And people are like, oh, it's a book about you. Well, actually, the name for the book is based on my gaming name. But the book is not about me. It's about the character, not me. And people are like, well, isn't that about you? It's like, no, it's not spelled like my name. It is similar, but it's not.
And that depends on how much money he puts in.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I'll have a lot of control, and it's hard to make a whole book into one movie, though, and I'm sure that there'd be some things that are changed. I think it will probably end up being campy, and that might be good.
Oh yeah, I like campy movies.
I always I'm not even a B-level actor, producer, movie person. I'm a C or D level, I'll admit that.
I would admit the pleasure of watching Sam Peckinpah direct Bruce what's his name in the Evil Dead movies. Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. I love Bruce Campbell.
I love those campy movies.
Yep.
I love how they started, and Raimi, how he started, and
well, Raimi's still making great movies.
I love the fact that Raimi puts him in cameos and everything. I went to a thing with Bruce Campbell one time to meet him when he was doing a one-man show, and it was just fantastic.
Very cool. Yeah, those are cult movies that will forever be in people's hearts.
Yeah, about once a year I watch them.
So I don't know exactly how it turns out, If it turns out bad, I hope it turns out bad enough to be a cult classic. That's what I can say. And to be honest, somebody interviewed me yesterday in a podcast asking me about the movies. And I said I've had the most fun with the most silliest movies. I mean, I like it when they don't necessarily take it too seriously. You should be out there having fun.
Right.
And because when you're having fun, I think people realize that and they have fun with you, So that's what I'm hoping for. And it'd be nice to have my book made into a movie,
Of course, yeah. I hope for you that happens. Just let me remind the viewers, go to the YouTube channel and click on the more and look at the notes for the YouTube video and all the notes about John and his webpage where stuff is in those notes. Go around and dig around in it.
So I know I can count on both you to want to be on the site actors and also executive producers. I know and maybe assistant directors. I know you guys want to sign up for all that.
That's right. Yeah. I need to get her to come up to Gettysburg and force her to spend the night near the field, in the fields, so she can hear the cannons.
I'll be the mural painter for your backgrounds.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's quite the artist.
well, you can do a part and send it in. And I loved that during COVID. A lot of people making movies, you would actually be given a part and given some lines or general lines. And then you were told what kind of background to have. And you would film your part. Like I was Amityville Bigfoot. I am a Bigfoot expert. And I'm talking on a podcast. But I recorded that myself and sent it in. I was a couple of shows. I was like a forensic scientist. And again, I shot that and sent it in. And they're like, here, it's like a mockumentary, I call some of those things. And they're mockumentaries. And, you film it, you send it in. The director says, do it a little different. So you do it a little different. You send it them again. You're still getting directed and told to make changes. And then when you see the movie, it's like, and here we talk to the forensic scientist. And then they go to you like they did an interview. And during COVID, you couldn't be visiting and traveling as much.
Right.
So you do the movie like that. And you can do that for this movie. The other thing you can do is you can send in a photo of you. If you can send in your music to be in it. You could send in a CD that you want put somewhere, or a book you wrote that you want seen in the movie. Like your book could be set on the table. Yeah. Or say you make T-shirts. A T-shirt print you have could be hanging over a chair in the movie. So you can do that and have hidden products and stuff. Or even there could be a poster up on the wall of an event you did that has your face on it or something. So you can be in the movie that way too. It's not all about being there and acting,
Do you know Lon Strickler?
That name is real familiar.
He's Bigfoot, ghost, everything in eastern Pennsylvania.
That name is familiar.
Yeah, we'll have to make sure we introduce the two of you.
He's very nice. Yeah.
Super nice
Well,
guy.
if he's nice, I don't want to meet him. No,
They investigate UFOs all over Pennsylvania. You get the idea. Well,
yeah,
it was,
I'd be glad.
it was,
I do interviews too, and I'd be glad to interview him also.
Yeah, he would love it. I promise you would. Okay, so please tell our viewers anything you want them to remember as we bring this to a close.
Just check me out, johnkerecz.com, crazyjohnkerecz.com. That's Kerecz. Those are my two blogs. One's a health blog, one's a travel blog. OSHradio.com used to be my internet radio station. Now it's an internet news station because the internet radio stuff has kind of been taken over by a lot of big parties, Spotify and iTunes and all that stuff. And my YouTube page is YouTube OSH Radio. And I used to just interview music people on there and do music shows, but now I do everything. It's about, I'll be honest, it's about me. So that's about me. Like today, I was at a new comic book shop in Pottstown I had been to, and I put that up as a short about my new favorite comic book shop in Pottstown.
So it's a kind of a blog.
Well, it's videos though, but I cover all kinds of stuff. I've been covering, politics, and I interview the Transhumanist Party. I interviewed people from the Alliance Party. I do use some AI to help me. Sometimes my voice gets screwed up when I put the things together. I end up sounding real German, and I am mostly German. But if you pay attention to some of the videos, although it's my voice, it ends up sounding very, very German. And I don't know why that happens, but it doesn't happen in all the videos. It's when I piece it together. And the other thing is people don't realize, they're like, well, these pictures aren't of what you're talking about. And it's like, yeah, there's something called copyrights. And you can't always have the pictures to everything. And talking about that, I know I'm going a little over, though, is it's interesting to me, everybody that makes hard comments about my site, when I go and look at their site, they have like 2 or 3 videos.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, plus the copyright strikes now has gotten really brutal on YouTube. John, thank you so much for being here. It was a great pleasure.
You gotta come back.
We'll want to make a little plan with you and bring you back and do something different from this, and because you've got a lot of interesting things to say.
Well, I'll tell you what, after we all work on this big movie project and we're famous, we can, we can do our next interview from the Greek Isles where we have our new houses. How's that sound?
There we go, in our yachts.
I accept that.
Good night, John.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good night.
Money does.